Okay, so I came across this suspiciously cheap AM5 processor and I was like, what the hell? Like, the cheapest AM5 Ryzen that I knew of was the 7500F, but that one is around 160 bucks. Meanwhile, this 8400F is going for as low as 105? So what's wrong with it? Well, I paired it with this 16GB RX 6800, so if it can handle that card, we can confidently say that we have an AM5 gem on our hands.
Who the hell are you? Agent Hitler, FBI.
Now, starting off with CS2, which is one of the most obvious indicators of the CPU's performance, we can see that both on 1080p medium and 1440p medium, it can push around 300 FPS on the benchmark map, which is not terrible, but not that great either, considering that the 7600 can do over 400 FPS. So let's see how other games do. And by the way, sorry for the MSI Afterburner overlay in this video, because for some reason it doesn't pick up the CPU temperature or clocks this time. Kinda weird, not gonna lie. But at least in Warzone, I gotta say that the performance was better than I expected, like for real. Like, the game set itself to extreme preset, which I thought was, you know, pretty extreme. Since we are testing the CPU today, not the GPU. So on 1080p Ultra with no upscaling, we got like 130 FPS, and some of the time the GPU was on 100%, but in the busier areas the CPU was dropping to 70, as you can see from the 1% lows. But for some reason I didn't encounter such areas on 1440p Ultra, but clearly the GPU was limiting the CPU this time. Now I'll quickly talk about this unoptimized garbage called Escape from Tarkov, where we got around 45 to 50 FPS on 1080p low settings with FSR set on performance. And just to prove the point that the CPU is bottlenecking here and not the GPU, I wanted to boot the game on 1440p high with no upscaling, but it crashed right before spawning me into the map. Twice.
Congratulations! Congratulations!
But it booted on 1440p medium. And we got more FPS! What? Okay, I'm so confused. But yeah, as you can see, both the CPU and the GPU are not fully utilized. So yeah, next.
Boring!
Yeah, we'll talk about a bit more of the unoptimized stuff with Stalker 2, where it was pretty weird. And by the way, I found this pretty funny Easter egg. Anyways, on 1080p low and 1440p low, we got these benchmark results where I wasn't so sure which component is bottlenecking, since the GPU was a couple of degrees colder and didn't pull as much electricity as on the other AAA games you'll see later in the video, and that was even on 1440p high preset. So either poor optimization or CPU bottleneck, it is really hard to tell here. But at least Cyberpunk proves that this CPU is actually quite good, because both on 1080p and 1440p high settings, the frame rate was very high, and the CPU was working on 60% of usage at most. And on Forza 5 and Wukong, it also passes with flying colors, because for example on Forza, using 1440p and 1080p Ultra preset, the CPU goes easily over 100 FPS. And similar story on Wukong, where we got over 100 FPS on 1080p low and around 80 on 1440p low. So yeah, at least for AAA games, the 6800 is just too weak for this Ryzen. And this continues, for example, in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I benchmarked 1440p low and got these benchmark results. Meanwhile, if dropped to 1080p low, we get around 130 FPS on average, with the CPU utilization at 50% at max, which theoretically means that this Ryzen could even push above 200 FPS with a more powerful graphics card. So where can we see the limits of this processor like we saw in CS2 or Warzone? Well, Fortnite is a very good indicator of the CPU's performance, and we got around 200 FPS both on 1080p and 1440p low with TSR on high and native resolution. So yeah, nothing like extraordinary, but good performance right here. Now prepare to be like, what? Because this Ryzen 5 8400F got only 1000 points less than the 7600 for almost half the price. I genuinely start to wonder where's the catch of it being so cheap. Yeah, but at the same time, having half of the L3 cache than the Ryzen 5 7600 sort of means that you have around half the FPS in Valorant, because on 1080p medium and 1440p medium we got around 300 to 350 FPS. Meanwhile, the 7600 is capable of over 500 for sure. Now for Apex, Siege and GTA 5 players, you genuinely wouldn't be able to tell a difference between the 7600 Ryzen or like the 7500F Ryzen, because just take a look at the numbers. Oh yeah, and using 1080p low, this is sort of the performance you can expect from Marvel Rivals, and this is the performance on 1440p low. So basically, in a nutshell, I'd say that this Ryzen just feels too cheap to be true, honestly. Like, apart from a few obvious shortcomings in esports games, which are probably due to the 4 Zen 4C cores rather than full 6 Zen 4 cores and lack of the L3 cache, this thing is probably the best way to get yourself into the AM5 platform. And yeah, while it is true that it supports only PCI Gen 4 instead of 5 like the 7500F, basically it just compromises on stuff like regular gamers probably don't care about, I guess. And at the same time, it is built on 4nm node instead of the 5nm that the 7600 is built on. So yeah, I genuinely recommend this processor. Like, get yourself a decent B650 board, 32 gigs of 6000 MHz RAM, which will last you for like 5 to 6 years at least, and upgrade to the X3T variant later on whenever you have the spare budget. It is so that simple. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Cheap bastard out.